Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa afdalu salati wa atammu taslima ala Sayyidina Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam ajma'in. Inshallah, let's turn to verse 93 of Surah al-Imran, verse 93, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم كل الطعام كان حلا لبني إسرائيل إلا ما حرم إسرائيل على نفسه من قبل أن تنزل التوراة قل فأتوا بالتوراة فاتلوها إن كنتم صادقين. Very interesting verse about some of the history of Bani Israel and its understanding of what was halal and haram for it in terms of food which was not haram for some of the Muslims. In fact, for all of the Muslims, that which was lawful for them was in fact not lawful. Some of those items were not lawful for the Ahlul Kitab, particularly the Jewish people, Bani Israel. So let's look at the translation, verse 93. All food that is lawful in the law revealed to Muhammad ﷺ was lawful to the children of Israel, except what Israel made unlawful to themselves before the revelation of the Torah. Tell them, bring the Torah and recite any passage of it if you are truthful. Okay, now what's going on here? What's the background? Now, basically, the evidences were piling up against the Bani Israel in the sense that the truth of the Qur'an was being further strengthened with every verse that was being revealed. And Bani Israel were feeling tightened into a corner where they couldn't come up with something to reasonably rebuttal any of the Quranic evidences. So when they could raise no other objection, because the Prophet's message was confirming their own message, they were running out of objections, they started raising fiqhi objections, legal objections concerning what was halal and haram. So they started saying that the Prophet ﷺ actually was making halal in terms of food some of those things which had been haram in the Sharia of the former prophets. They were referring to their own Sharia, the Sharia of Bani Israel, and specifically when they found or when they thought they had the opportunity to object in this manner was when the Prophet ﷺ declared that he was on the Millah of Ibrahim ﷺ, right? This was one of the well-known statements and positions of the Prophet ﷺ. He made it clear that he was on the Millah of Ibrahim, he was following the way of Ibrahim ﷺ. So they jumped at this because they said, wait a minute, Israel, or the children of Israel rather, were not allowed to eat camel meat. Okay, the meat of the camel was haram for Bani Israel, right? So they said, you claim, O Muhammad ﷺ, to be on the millah and the way of Ibrahim ﷺ, yet you eat camel meat. You consider camel meat halal, lawful. So how is it that you are following his sunnah? So here the Prophet ﷺ is being told to reply to them that in fact it had not been haram for Ibrahim ﷺ. In the Sharia of Ibrahim, camel meat was permissible just as it is permissible in the Sharia of Muhammad ﷺ, in our Sharia. However, the Jews considered it haram, and they said that this report had reached them. Their claim was this report, the report of the prohibition of camel meat, had reached them from the time of Ibrahim and Nuh alayhi salam. So what's going on here? How did they come up with this idea? There are two scenarios. Number one, if in this verse Israel refers to the nation of Israel, yani to the children of Israel, yani to Bani Israel, then it refers to those things which they had made unlawful by custom. Yani before the revelation of the Torah, what Bani Israel did is they themselves, out of custom, out of tradition, on their own, before the Torah was revealed, because the Torah was revealed to Musa alayhi salam, right? Ibrahim alayhi salam is way before that, right? So at that time, before Musa alayhi salam, before the Torah, the descendants of Ibrahim alayhi salam had Bani Israel had made some things haram for them to eat by custom. Okay, this is the meaning if we understand Israel to mean the children of Israel, yani the tribe of Bani Israel. However, Israel is really, this is the second position or second understanding, is that Israel is really the name of Yaqub alayhi salam, right? Yaqub alayhi salam. So this is the more probable and correct understanding of the verse, is that he himself started to abstain from certain foods because he became seriously ill, and he made a vow to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that if you cure me of my illness, I will give up my favorite food and my favorite drink. And his favorite food was camel meat, and his favorite drink was camel milk. So this is actually what he himself had made as a vow to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like similar to a nadhr that we have in Islam, that when we vow to do something extra that is not obligatory upon us, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cures me of this or gives me a child or whatever, I will do such and such voluntary deed, right? This is similar to what Yaqub alayhi salam did. And so he, according to his vow, and Allah accepted this vow from him, so according to the vow, he gave up what he enjoyed most if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cured him, so he gave up the camel meat and the camel milk. So later Bani Israel, because of his precedent, began to imagine that, or began to assume, began to think that this is haram in our Sharia. But in fact it was not haram, it was something personal that Yaqub alayhi salam had done for that reason. Now, are there certain foods that in fact are haram to Bani Israel that are halal in our Sharia? Yes, that is correct, but that's a separate point. And the reason for that is because of their transgressions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a punishment made certain foods haram for them. It's not because of other things as may have been claimed. And Surah Al-An'am actually mentions the fact, Surah Al-An'am, right, verse 6, Surah 6 mentions the fact that certain foods were made haram for them because of their transgressions as a punishment. Okay, so that is the reason for the unlawfulness of those things that are haram for them, and not because Yaqub alayhi salam did this and therefore it became haram. No. His was a personal choice, a personal decision between a vow between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that does not make that item universally haram for all times to come, for all people who claim to follow the Millah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Because if it were that the case, then it should have been haram for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? But no. It is clearly, even in their Torah, it is clear that the things that were prohibited for them were prohibited upon Bani Israel because of their transgression. This particular case of camel meat is specific to Yaqub alayhi salam, and all of these things, those which are haram on them as a punishment, and those that Yaqub alayhi salam made haram upon himself as a personal vow, both of these are halal in the Sharia of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this is why this verse 93 ends with قُلْ فَأْتُوا بِالتَّوْرَاةِ فَاتْلُوهَا إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. So tell them, say, so come with the Torah and recite it if you are truthful. Yani the Torah actually contains within it evidence of the fact that these foods were made unlawful for them specifically, and not for people of all times like they were claiming, and therefore on that basis blaming the Prophet ﷺ to be claiming to be on the Millah of Ibrahim, but then eating those foods which are considered haram. In the Torah is evidence of the fact that they were not haram for all times to come, but rather they were made unlawful for them specifically. I hope this point is clear. Now all of this obviously you don't understand from the just one reading of the verse, right? So if something is unclear, inshallah, I could take questions at the end of the session. Okay, let's go to verse 94 through 95. فَمَنِ افْتَرَى عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ مِنْ بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ قُلْ صَدَقَ اللَّهُ فَاتَّبِعُوا مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Those who forge lies against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala despite this are the wrongdoers. And in spite of the clear evidence that is present in the Torah before it was tampered with, right? In spite of the clear evidence the Qur'an has brought forth, in spite of the clarification that has been provided about Yaqub alayhi salam, in spite of all these things, if someone is going to keep lying, then this is lying against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? These are the zalimun. They are only wronging their own selves, their own selves. So the solution out of all of this is to submit to the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has spoken the truth. فَاتَّبِعُوا مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. Say Allah has spoken the truth, Allah has been truthful, therefore follow the millah of Ibrahim, who indeed was not a mushrik. He was not those who associated partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, he is the builder of the sacred house. How can he be a mushrik or anything other than the highest status that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him in the Qur'an? Hanifan, Musliman, وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Right? He is Hanif, on the way of monotheism, and he is not of the mushrikeen, and he is the builder of the sacred house, as we will see in verse 96. إِنَّ أَوَّلَ بَيْتٍ وُضِعَ لِلنَّاسِ لَلَّذِي بِبَكَّةَ مُبَارَكًا وَهُدًى لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Behold, the first house of prayer established for mankind is the one at Bakkah, Yani Makkah, right? It is full of blessings and is a center of guidance for the whole world. Okay, now how is this coming up again? Again, this whole surah, if you remember the background of the revelation, it's dealing with all the objections that Ahlul Kitab, in this passage particularly Bani Israel, were throwing at the Prophet ﷺ, aiming against Islam. What was another objection that they had? Against the Qibla change, right? Although that has already been dealt with in Surah Al-Baqarah. And the Qibla change and why it was changed, we went through some of the reasons and the wisdoms behind that, right? But again, they continue to raise this objection. Why is the Qibla? It was stinging them that, before it was towards Jerusalem, which is obviously very special and holy to them, and now after 16 to 17 months of the Prophet ﷺ praying there, which would, in their minds, is asserting their superiority and asserting their precedence in a religious sense, right? Now, why is it being changed? Now, if we just look at historical facts, okay, this is kind of what the Qur'an is alluding to when it mentions that the Kaaba was built by Ibrahim alayhi salam. What the verse does not say but is understood is that if it was built by Ibrahim alayhi salam, right, and this is the Qibla that the Muslims are being told to turn to, part of the reason for this is that it has historical precedence in terms of when it was built. Right? They wanted the Qibla to remain at Bayt al-Maqdis, facing the temple in Jerusalem, right? Which had been built by Sulaiman alayhi salam, right? But who came first? Ibrahim or Sulaiman alayhi salam, right? There's centuries between the two. Ibrahim is way earlier. He's over 1,000 years before Sulaiman alayhi salam, right? So just from a historical perspective, the Kaaba has, historical structural precedence in terms of when it was built. So, and it is the first house. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here introduces the Kaaba. Inna awwala baytin wudi'a lin-nas. It's the first house built for worship in all of the world. Doesn't it have a greater right for it to be considered the Qibla, right? It is built before the temple at Jerusalem by over 1,000 years. Doesn't that give it historical precedence to be the center, to be the Qibla, right? So again, you don't see that in the explicitly, but this is what is implied. So the Kaaba is built by Ibrahim alayhi salam. If they're claiming to be descendants of Ibrahim alayhi salam, they really should not have objected to this, to the fact that they now had to face the Kaaba and not Bayt al-Maqdis. Okay. Now the Bible itself states that the temple was built 450 years after Musa alayhi salam, right? The temple at Jerusalem is built 450 years after Musa alayhi salam. This is according to the Bible. Okay, these are their own sources. And Kaaba is built by Ibrahim alayhi salam 900 years before Musa. So the temple at Jerusalem is built 450 years after Musa alayhi salam, right? And the Kaaba is built by Ibrahim 900 years before Musa alayhi salam. Right? If you want the exact dates, the temple or Solomon's temple, the temple of Sulaiman alayhi salam in Jerusalem, was completed in 1007 BC. This is just from regular historical sources. 1007 BC, this temple of Sulaiman alayhi salam in Jerusalem is completed, whereas Muslim scholars generally agree that the Kaaba was completed by Ibrahim alayhi salam in 2130 BC, right? Now remember, BC goes backwards, right? So the larger the number, the older it is, right? Not the other way around. So 2130 BC versus 1007 BC, there's over 1,000 years, over a millennium between the two, right? So just from this perspective, we see how it made sense for the Kaaba to be the Qibla for all people who are submitting to the truth, especially the Jewish people who have their strongest patriarch, along with Musa alayhi salam, one of their strongest leaders is Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? So them out of all people, should not have objected to the Qibla change. Again, this is why it's being mentioned that it is Ibrahim again who built the Kaaba. That's mentioned explicitly in Surah Al-Baqarah, which we already covered. Now here it says Bakka, right? Not Makkah. So the Tafsir mentioned that this is common in the Arabic language. The Ba is replaced with the Mim is replaced with the Ba. We have this phenomenon of Iqlab as well in Tajweed. So it is the same thing, okay? Now I want to talk a little bit about several distinctions that the Kaaba enjoys. I'm going to mention quite a few. some of the distinctions that the Kaaba enjoys. This is a great opportunity for us actually to learn a bit more detail about the most special place on earth. So the first distinction that the Kaaba has, it is the first house of worship built on this earth for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first house of worship. And just like there is a Kaaba in the heavens, this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blessed us with this Kaaba in this world, okay? And the Kaaba in the heavens, Bayt al-Ma'mur, you have thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of angels constantly circulating Bayt al-Ma'mur, to the point that it is said that the one who makes tawaf around that house does not get a chance to do so until the day of judgment. SubhanAllah. This gives an idea of the number of angels. In fact, SubhanAllah, we can't even imagine how many angels there are and how everything is constantly in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How the most honorable of creation is constantly in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the more worship there is, the more honor there is for created beings, right? So the first thing is the first house of worship. Number two, filled with blessings. Okay, this is, look at the verse, Inna awwala baytin wudi'a lin-nas. Okay, it's the first house laid down for mankind. لِلَّذِي بِبَكَّةَ مُبَارَكَةً. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself describes it with this adjective, right? Mubarakah, that it is blessed. Okay, it is filled with blessings. Mubarakah is from the root word that barakah comes from, right? And what is barakah? It means increase or growth, right? And not just that, but it also means to sustain. So it's to grow and to sustain. And if you just look at the meanings of how it has been a place of growth, a place that has been sustaining others, look at how it was a barren desert, where even animals would not come, subhanAllah. You could not even find a bird before the miracle of Zamzam. Not even a bird would come there, because it knew that to come to the valley of Makkah was to perish, was to die, because there is nothing to even drink, not even a drop to drink. And look at it today. It not only sustains its own population, but it accommodates physically and food-wise the entire population of the world when it comes into its precincts. I mean, subhanAllah. We take it for granted, but that's nothing short of a miracle. The millions that visit it regularly, and the food has never run out. We've never heard, oh, the Hujjaj didn't have food this year, or last year, or 100 years ago. This is something we never hear about, subhanAllah. It has sustained its population, the population of the world, subhanAllah, for over 1,000 years. The food or the items never run out. How many animals get sacrificed in the Hajj? And usually one person does more than one sacrifice, right? Nobody wants to do just one goat or one sheep. They want to do more. Never has it happened that in Makkah there are no more animals left to sacrifice. They're always available, subhanAllah. And look at the barakah. This is bibakkata mubarakah. This is barakah. This is growth and increase in a way that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have provided, could have caused. Now, those are just some of the physical aspects of barakah. What about the spiritual? This is known to those who go there. It cannot be understood except by being there. SubhanAllah. And every time you meet, someone who has come back from Hajj or someone who has come back from Umrah, they will have their story of miracles, their share of small miracles that they themselves personally experienced. They're not made up stories. SubhanAllah. And this, and look at the virtue of the salah, just to understand one spiritual benefit of this place is that the regular salah that we offer with all the khushu in the world in our homes, if we were to do it there, it's 100,000 more. If that's not barakah, what is, And of course, the Masjid of the Prophet ﷺ also with 50,000 prayers, and in the Kaaba, 100,000 prayers. So exponential increase of reward of ibadat. Innumerable benefits, spiritual benefits related directly only to the Kaaba. Like the Hajj and the Umrah cannot be performed anywhere else. Why? Because the Kaaba is not there. You cannot do those things anywhere else. It wouldn't count because of the Kaaba is only in that place. The Hajj and Umrah, and the Hajj, which is a fard, an obligation. The farida of Hajj cannot be completed in any other place, right? Why? Because of the Kaaba, right? So innumerable, I mean, what other deed will render you as sinless as a newborn? Nothing but the Hajj, right? Again, another benefit, another spiritual benefit. So, and a source of guidance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَهُدًى لِلْعَالَمِينَ, and a source of guidance for all of humankind, right? All of humanity comes there and it increases them in guidance, right? It is rare to find someone who has completed the Hajj or the Umrah and there is not an increase in their iman, that there is not some increase in their hidayah. It's rare, you know. Everyone brings back something, even if it's short-lived because of their own, shortcomings. But subhanAllah, it provides, it gives to everyone. And Abdullah bin Amr radiallahu anh, he narrates, and some other Sahaba also, in fact, not narrate, but their opinion is that this was the first house ever to be built in the world, and the first time it was built was by Adam alayhi salam himself. Okay, Ibrahim alayhi salam reconstructed the Kaaba after it was destroyed in the flood of Nuh alayhi salam, but the first one to actually construct the Kaaba for the first time ever was Adam alayhi salam, right? And there's a narration in Ibn Kathir that states, after the arrival of Sayyidina Adam and Sayyidina Hawa alayhi salam into the mortal world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded them through Jibreel that they should build the house of Allah. And after they had fulfilled the command, they were asked to go around it. They were told that they were the first among people, and this house was the first house of worship appointed for the people. You know, and then, as I mentioned, there are some reports that it was destroyed in the flood of Nuh alayhi salam. You know, everything was destroyed completely. And then Jibreel alayhi salam, according to certain reports, guided Ibrahim alayhi salam to the exact location of where that Kaaba had stood, so that he would rebuild it in that same spot, because the spot is sacred. That land is sacred and had to be rebuilt on the same, in exactly the same location. And there are some indication that Ibrahim alayhi salam actually, when he went there, he built the Kaaba before he built his own house to live in. This is the precedence and the preference and the sanctity which is given to the Kaaba. And also in Surah Al-Baqarah, when we studied the verse وَيَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَعِيلُ, and when Ibrahim was raising the foundations of the house and Ismail, right? That means the foundations were kind of already there. So there's a subtle implication, perhaps, in that verse that the foundations were already there. That means it had already been built once, right? And he was raising the foundation, he was rebuilding, reconstructing the Kaaba. There are reports to this effect, wallahu alam. And just for you to know, the Kaaba has been destroyed and rebuilt several times, right? Or maybe half a dozen or more times, 5 to 12 times, different reports. So Ibrahim alayhi salam is best remembered for rebuilding the Kaaba along with Ismail alayhi salam. Okay, so now let's look at the next verse. Behold, the first house of prayer established for mankind is the one at Makkah. It is full of blessings and a center of guidance for the whole world. فيه آيات بينات مقام إبراهيم ومن دخله كان آمنا ولله على الناس حج البيت من استطاع إليه سبيلا ومن كفر فإن الله غني عن العالمين. In it there are clear signs. Okay, فيه آيات بينات, right? In it there are clear signs and the station of Ibrahim. Whoever enters it becomes secure. Pilgrimage to the house is a duty owed to Allah by all who can make their way to it. As for those who refuse to follow His command, surely Allah stands in need of no one in the whole universe. Okay, now here, فيه آيات بينات مقام إبراهيم. It talks about the different clear signs that are present within the Kaaba. Clear signs of what? Clear signs of the fact that it indeed is Baytullah. It indeed is the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No doubt. And the first proof, the first evidence is Maqam Ibrahim. What is the Maqam of Ibrahim alayhi salam? It's actually the stone that Ibrahim alayhi salam used to stand on while he was building the Kaaba. You know, when you're building something, you need a place to kind of go back, step on, see if the construction is going well. So the actual place where he stood while he was building the Kaaba, that stone is the Maqam of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And originally this stone, it was stuck onto the wall of the Kaaba, and that's where it used to be. But then Umar radiallahu anh, he moved it back because he didn't want the people that were making tawaf around the Kaaba to disturb the people who were praying behind Maqam Ibrahim. You know, after you do the tawaf, you're supposed to pray rak'atain, right, in the Maqam of Ibrahim. So people would be praying there, but others would still be doing tawaf, right, those that hadn't completed their tawaf. So then Umar radiallahu anh had it moved back. He had the stone moved back so that it wouldn't disturb the musallin. So the closer you are to Maqam Ibrahim, when you offer those 2 rak'ahs after the tawaf, the more reward it has, the more meritorious it is, right? Because we're supposed to take the Maqam of Ibrahim as a place of prayer, right? وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلًّى, right? We have then Surah Al-Baqarah to take, Allah says, take the Maqam of Ibrahim as a place of prayer, right? So the closer you can get to it, you know, of course you can pray the 2 rak'ah anywhere, but you know, perhaps inshallah there is greater reward that the Tafsir mentions when you pray closer to the Maqam of Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَمَنْ دَخَلَهُ كَانَ آمِنًا. وَمَنْ دَخَلَهُ كَانَ آمِنًا. One who enters it became secure. Now this is indeed one of the greatest miracles of the Kaaba and its precincts and the premises that it is in. We know the history of the Arabs before Islam. The complete chaos that was normal in their lives in terms of fighting, tribal warfare, killings, looting, plunder. That was a way of life for them. You know what they would do? When they were bored, they would go to war. This was how they lived. They considered war a pastime. When, you know, it was a barren desert, nomadic population, resources were limited, the earth could sustain, the limited resources could only sustain a certain number of people. So when the population became too much, or you know, they wanted to, they would just go to war to kind of try to population control, you know, in their minds. Like seriously, because the resources were so limited, they couldn't have a lot of people living in one spot for a long period of time. So, and also it was an opportunity to show off their skills. They were very big in boasting. And this is one of the reasons they were so generous as well. One of the greatest traits in Jahiliyyah was that they were extremely generous. Why? So they could boast about it. That, you know, we slaughtered this many camels and fed this many people. You know, it was a good thing, a good deed in itself until they ruined it with the boasting, right? So part of their boasting and showing off was in wartime as well, when they would show off their skills of archery and you know, bow and arrow and all, and bravery and so on and so forth. So some of them actually looked forward to war. And so the complete chaos that prevailed for 2,500 years before Islam, in spite of that mentality and lifestyle, there was always security around the Kaaba. They would go to war at the slightest provocation. But the Kaaba, its sanctity is as such that even if a person killed someone and then sought refuge in the Kaaba because they didn't want to get, you know, face retaliation, they would put a piece of wool around their necks, enter into the Kaaba. This is Jahiliyyah, okay? And even if the son of the murdered were to pass him, he would not say anything to him because they were in the precincts of the Kaaba. And this is the people who would, you know, kill for fun, just go to war for fun. So subhanallah, yani this, and even not just human beings, even animals. Even, you know, you cannot even, let alone hunt. Of course, hunting is completely prohibited. You cannot even scare an animal within the precincts of the Kaaba to capture it. So let alone, you know, hunting or killing, you cannot even scare an animal to capture it within the precincts of the Kaaba. This is وَمَنْ دَخَلَهُ كَانَ آمِنًا. Whoever enters it becomes secure indeed. Aren't these ayat bayinat? Aren't these the clear signs? This indeed is this house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you know, there is obviously, it's been this way since the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And fighting has never been allowed in the Kaaba except for a short period of time on the day of the conquest of Makkah. That was the only exception made through wahi for the Prophet ﷺ, where fighting was allowed for a very limited amount of time, just for that purpose, because it was the day of the conquest of Makkah and they were right there within its precincts, and it was made permissible only for a few hours. Otherwise, even quarreling there, even arguing there is detested, let alone full-fledged fighting. Even animals are granted sanctuary. You cannot cut down trees within the vicinity of the Kaaba. There's a lovely hadith that I wanted to share with you. I'll just read the English. On the authority of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, that the Prophet ﷺ said on the day of the conquest of Makkah, Allah has made the city a sacred one ever since the day He created the heavens and the earth. So the Makkah has been sacred since the beginning of time. When Allah created the heavens and the earth, Makkah from that moment was sacred. You can't say that for every place, certainly not for Times Square or anything there is a difference in sanctity of land, and it can only become sacred if Allah makes it sacred. This can only be from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has made this city a sacred one ever since the day He created the heavens and the earth. It remains therefore haram by virtue of the sanctity imparted to it by Allah until the Yawm al-Qiyamah. Until the Day of Judgment, its sanctity remains the same. Fighting in the city, this is the Prophet ﷺ, fighting in the city was never made lawful to anyone before me. It has only been made lawful to me for an hour of one day. Only on the day of the Fath of Makkah for an hour. It continues to be sanctified by Allah's order till Yawm al-Qiyamah. Its plants may not be cut, its game may not be scared. No one may pick up something dropped by other people unless he recognizes its owner. So this is the hurma, the sanctity of the Kaaba and its precincts, and specific injunctions relating to the Kaaba that are not applicable to other areas. So another great sign that was known to the people at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, that again proved that this is Baytullah, the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is what happened in the year of the elephant, right? When the Prophet ﷺ was born, Abraham and his army, right? Everybody knows the story, how he tried to attack and destroy the Kaaba and what happened to him, right? We all know the story. So this is obviously being divinely protected. No one is able to violate or attack the Kaaba effectively. It is protected divinely by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the people alive at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they actually remembered the incident. They had seen it with their own eyes. Those that were older than the Prophet ﷺ, they actually were present, were witnesses, and remembered, and had seen it, witnessed it with their own eyes. وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. And for Allah is the pilgrimage to the house, whoever can afford to make, who is able to make the journey, right? So this is a faridah, right? This is a fard, to visit the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's interesting what Allah says after that, وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ عَنِ الْعَالَمِينَ. And whoever commits kufr, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is independent of all of humankind. Why is that right after the command for Hajj? That whoever commits kufr? There are two explanations for this. The second is more plausible than the first. The first is, it is an act of kufr to consider Hajj to not be obligatory. So for those that may consider themselves Muslims, at the same time don't consider the Hajj to be fard, it's something optional. This is obviously an act of a statement of kufr, a statement of disbelief, right? I don't think many people will say this. The second, but if they do, if anyone were to consider any of the faraid in Islam, like it's not fard to pray or it's not fard to fast, it's good if you do, but it's not fard to do these things. These are actually statements of kufr. If you really believe this, they can take you out of the fold because you are openly stating your disbelief in something that is a known farida, a known obligation. Okay, this is actually one of the principles in fiqh. But anyhow, this fact that whoever does not perform the Hajj, even though they have the financial ability to do so, is acting like someone who commits an act of disbelief, right? So whoever has the financial ability to make the Hajj but does not do so, That, Allah says it's an obligation for those who are able to make the journey. وَمَنْ كَفَرَ, and whoever, disbelieves and he acts like it's not fard, or that does not purposely perform the Hajj, even though he or she can do it, then Allah is independent of all the words, of the whole universe. So the interesting thing is the use of the word وَمَنْ كَفَرَ, right? This is how serious the farida of Hajj is. Every fard is serious, and this is no exception. Sometimes people become lax in it because there is this option of doing it the following year, they think, right? That is when you have a legitimate excuse. But there is no, it is not, proper to purposely just keep putting it off. As soon as you have the financial ability, you have to perform the Hajj. People sometimes treat it this way because it's not like the Salah, which you can do at home, the Siyam you can do at home, the Zakah money you can send from your house, right? It actually requires a greater level of physical and financial sacrifice, which is why sometimes people become lax in that. So this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perhaps has used this very strong way of conveying to the fact that a woman kafara, whoever shows this, acts in this manner, refuses to follow the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, surely Allah stands in need of no one in the entire world. Okay, let's look at verse 98. قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ لِمَ تَكْفُرُونَ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ شَهِيدٌ عَلَى مَا تَعْمَلُونَ. Say, people of the book, why do you reject the signs of Allah when Allah is witness to all that you do? قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ لِمَ تَصُدُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ مَنْ آمَنَ تَبْغُونَهَا عِوَجًا وَأَنْتُمْ شُهَدَاءُ وَمَا اللَّهُ بِغَافِلٍ عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. Say, people of the book, why do you hinder believers from the way of Allah, seeking that they follow a crooked way, even though you yourselves are witness to its being the right way? Allah is not heedless of what you do. Okay, here, this is actually referring specifically to an incident. When you read it, it just seems like a general admonition, questioning of Ahlul Kitab. Specifically, this refers to an incident involving a Jewish man from the people of the book. His name was Shammas bin Qais. And he was a Jewish man in Medina, and he had something against the Muslims in his heart, but he couldn't really act on it until he finally got this opportunity. And what was that opportunity? He saw the Aus and the Khazraj, the two major tribes of Medina, that were now the Ansar after Islam, right? They were the ones who had welcomed the Muhajirin. So they were sitting very amiably together in a very friendly manner, like old friends, like brothers. And what's interesting to note is that they had been bitter enemies in Jahiliyyah. The Aus and the Khazraj, these two tribes of Medina, had been bitter enemies, constantly at war, to the point that they realized that if we do not stop fighting, we are going to annihilate each other. We're going to cancel each other out. And the Banu Nadir are going to gain power over us or become dominant. So when he saw this Jewish man saw this, and something stirred in his heart when he saw these two age-old enemies sitting together as friends, sitting together in a very friendly way. So he said, why don't you recite some of the poetry that you used to recite in Jahiliyyah? And this poetry, subhanAllah, that they used to recite in Jahiliyyah, each tribe would boast about its own tribe. So their whole poetry in Jahiliyyah of the Aus and the Khazraj was about tribal pride. And so each would be, explaining or going on and on about how great this tribe is and how it's better than the other tribe, and what gives it superiority and all of these things. So when they started, so he said, you used to recite in Jahiliyyah, why don't you recite it now as brothers, as friends? So as soon as they started reciting this, subhanAllah, shaitan is never too far off. Something began to stir within them as well, and they started remembering. And they started feeling, those same feelings, negative feelings of tribal jealousy. And subhanAllah, there was about to, a full-fledged fight was about to start between the two sides. And these are the Aus and these are the Ansar, okay? And alhamdulillah, of course, the Prophet ﷺ found out about this, and he came forward and he says that, are you going to do this? And I'm still among you. Right? That I'm still amidst you, and you're going to call upon this da'wah al-jahiliyyah. You're going to call each other, rally each other up on the da'wah and the call of jahiliyyah, and I'm still among you. And of course, alhamdulillah, the situation was calmed after the Prophet ﷺ came and took control of it. And so the Ahlul Kitab were being asked, why do you reject the signs of Allah when Allah is witness to all that you do? Why do you hinder believers from the way of Allah, seeking that they follow a crooked way, even though you yourselves are witness to it being the right way? So when you look at the verse, in that light, you can understand exactly how they were trying to get those that were already on the path off the path, right? And then this leads to a deeper concept. This whole situation that occurred between the Muslims leads to the next verse. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن تطيعوا فريقا من الذين أوتوا الكتاب يردوكم بعد إيمانكم كافرين. Subhanallah. Look how telling this verse is. Believers, were you to obey a party of those who are given the book, they might cause you to renounce the truth after you have attained to faith. وكيف تكفرون وأنتم تتلى عليكم آيات الله وفيكم رسوله وَمَا يَعْتَصِمْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ هُدِيَ إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Believers, or rather, how can you disbelieve when you are the ones to whom the signs of Allah are recited, and when His Messenger is in your midst? Whoever holds fast to Allah will certainly be guided to the right way. Okay, let's go on to the next part. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. Believers, fear Allah as He should be feared, and see that you do not die save in submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here, these verses present a clear warning to how obeying others, in matters that concern you, will most likely lead to your ruin, right? It will actually lead you to denounce your faith after you have had iman. And here, of course, the extra reminder that the Prophet is amongst you, right? When this incident happened, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And therefore, the greatest tool for preventing these situations is now being given in verses 102 through 103. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا وكنتم على شفا حفرة من النار فأنقذكم منها كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون. Hold fast together to the cable of Allah and be not divided. Remember the blessing that Allah bestowed upon you. You were once enemies. Then He brought your hearts together so that through His blessing you became brothers. You stood on the brink of a pit of fire and He delivered you from it. Thus Allah makes His signs clear to you that you may be guided to the right way. So here the two principles, very important principles, are being laid out in verses 102 through 103 that will make the Muslims unbeatable. 102, taqwa, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqati, and 103, wa'tasimu bihablillahi jami'an, hold fast together to the cable of Allah, yani unity. Taqwa and unity. Now taqwa we know a little bit about, inshallah, hopefully, a sense of avoidance. What is taqwa? It's to avoid, to abstain, to not do, okay? Before you do, of course, the good deeds, that's in one category, and taqwa is to not do those things that are forbidden, right? To avoid all that is disliked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. This is the level of taqwa that is associated with reward. To abstain from that, to avoid all that is disliked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. This is the level where the blessings of taqwa come. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the muttaqin, right? So these muttaqin are the ones that are abstaining from all that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dislikes and His Messenger dislikes. So if we want to attain the blessings of taqwa, which are mentioned in the Qur'an, what happens to people of taqwa, then this comes at that high level of abstinence from that which is displeasing to Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Of course, the highest level of taqwa, which is what the prophets are at, and this is something we can try to aspire for, is guarding the heart against everything that is unrelated to Allah. This is where the prophets are at, right? This is the level of taqwa, to constantly have the heart filled with His remembrance, to constantly keep it cut off, guarded against that which does not relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this is a very, very high, difficult level, to never let anything enter your heart, to never become preoccupied with anything that is unrelated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a very challenging state of taqwa that inshallah we can aspire for. Why is taqwa sometimes translated as fear? Taqwa, as you know, sometimes it's fear, right? Muttaqeen, God-fearing, right? That's what people of taqwa are translated as. Taqwa, fear. Because of the fear that we should feel when we approach that which we should avoid. Because of the fear of punishment and danger that we should feel when we approach that which we should avoid. Okay, so this is how they may be related, avoidance and fear. And here to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as is His right. What does the verse say? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatih. What does haqqa tuqatih mean? What does it mean to fear Allah as He should be feared? What is that fear? How should He be feared the way He deserves to be feared? What is that fear? And it's mentioned, one of the books, Al-Bahr al-Muhit mentions, حَقَّ تُقَاتِهِ هُوَ أَن يُطَاعَ فَلَا يُعْصَى وَيَذْكُرْ فَلَا يُنْسَى وَيَذْكُرْ فَلَا يُنْسَى وَيَشْكُرْ فَلَا يُكْفَرْ, right? Which is that He be obeyed and not disobeyed, and that He be remembered and not forgotten, and that He be given thanks to and never should ingratitude be shown to Him. Okay, this is to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as it is His right to be feared. Attaqullah haqqa tuqatihi, right? This is the haqq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of taqwa, right? Obviously very, very difficult again to achieve. And some say that true taqwa can never be achieved until the tongue is protected. This is critical. Someone who has taqwa will protect his or her tongue, or will try to as much as he or she can, inshallah. And of course, we slip up. There will be slip-ups, and major ones, right? Not just minor. And we will have the door of repentance, which begins with remorse in the heart, right? So we always have hope, inshallah. Another verse in the Qur'an which is related to taqwa, which says فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ, right? There's another verse in the Qur'an that says fear Allah literally مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ, as much as you can. مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ, it's from istata'a, which is the same word that is actually used in verse 97, right? وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى نَاسِ حَجُّ الْبَيْتِ مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. And for people is Hajj to the house, مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ, yani whoever is able to make it there. So istata'a is ability. If you are able to do something, istata'a literally is ability. So فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ, fear Allah as much as you can. Yani as much as it is possible for you to do so. Yani go to the highest level that it is possible for you to achieve. Go to that level of taqwa. Okay? Alright, now because of time, inshallah, I'm going to stop here, and we'll continue. Can we just finish this verse 103? If it's okay with everyone, we'll just finish this verse, okay? Because it's really related to hablullah. وَأَعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا, right? To hold on to the way of life prescribed by Him. Habl literally is the cord, as a cord or a rope, right? That keeps people connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Binds them together. Binds the Muslim community together. So believers here are being urged to hold on to this rope together and go upwards. Okay? Yani, keep struggling, keep elevating yourself while holding together to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the picture that's being painted is a group of believers holding on to a rope while they're climbing upwards. Is it possible for them to fall? If they're all tightly holding on to the rope, then they can ascend higher and higher, more safely than if they were to try to make that journey alone, right? So hold on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to hold on to the way of life prescribed by Him together as a community, which is why being good is so much easier in Ramadan. Everyone's doing it. Everyone's united. Everyone has the same schedule. Everyone's praying together, right? So to hold on together to the way of life prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be a much more successful attempt than if you do it alone, right? And if you are lax, if you let go of this cord, if you let go and start, dividing, then what will happen? What happened to the former nations, right? Fighting, bickering, asking too many questions that lead to disputation and division. One of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates is excessive questioning. And this was actually one of the reasons for the destruction of former nations, is that the way they started disputing with their prophets, right? Excessive questioning, asking for the sake of division, asking not to understand but to divide, to disagree, to argue, right? And here, when it talks about, subhanAllah, remember when you were enemies and you brought your hearts together. You were on the brink of a pit of fire and he delivered you from. Remember the Aus and the Khazraj? How were they on the brink of the pit of fire? They were about to kill each other, remember? They were about to become annihilated in Medina, these two tribes of Aus and Khazraj. You stood on the brink of a pit of fire, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved them from it when they learned about the message of Islam, and they accepted and they became brothers because of this. And I want to relate to you one story which shows the extent of war and fighting amongst them. And this is actually from, it's a regular article by a non-Muslim on tribes and social structure before Islam. It's by Christina Dodge. She writes, 2 men were reportedly engaged in a horse race, and one of the men died in the course of the race. This man's family, his tribe, and their allies attacked the tribe of the opponent in order to avenge his death. A war ensued that lasted 40 years, resulting in the death of thousands of people over losing a race. What started out as a game, ended up in this crazy war of decades spanning over a generation. 40 years where thousands and thousands of people died over because of the death of one person. SubhanAllah, this is what Allah rescued them from. This is what Islam rescued them from. They were on the brink of annihilating themselves, killing themselves. And the Aus and the Khazraj had been enemies, since ages, literally. And now, subhanAllah, in Medina, they stood united when the Muhajirin came in after the Hijrah, ready to accept them and serve them, as brothers, subhanAllah. So, وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, do not become disunited. Have taqwa, and وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, do not become disunited. This is the certain path to communal destruction. As we see painfully today in the Muslim world, tafarruq, to become disunited, this is the surest way to ultimate weakness and destruction. Okay? And so inshallah with that we will end. سبحانك وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.